14th, 2026 regular session of the Bloomington Common Council to order. Will the clerk please read the roll?
Yes, Councilmember Flaherty. Here. Stossberg. Here. Piedmont-Smith. Here. Zulik.
Here.
Asari.
Here.
Daly.
Here.
Rallo.
Here.
Ruff.
Here.
And thank you.
Excellent. This evening's agenda is posted on the doors, also online, but it includes one resolution regarding 2026 community development block grant funding, 3 ordinances, including a salary ordinance and 2 amendments to the UDO. There's no legislation for first reading, and there will be 2 opportunities for public comment. At this time, I'd like to move for the approval of our minutes. Are there any corrections to the minutes? Hearing none, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We don't have anybody attending online. Can we approve the minutes by voice vote?
Yes, but before you do so, I didn't catch who the second was.
Councilmember Daly.
Okay.
And the first was there by Councilmember Zulik.
Okay.
All right,
Thank
I
you.
have a motion and a second to approve the minutes from September 3rd, September 17th, and September 24th. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Moving on to reports. We'll start with reports from council and council members. Does anybody have a report? All right, Councilmember Piedmont-Smith.
Yeah, 2 things this evening. First of all, I'd like to note the passing of Lee Williams, the founder of the Lotus World Music and Arts Festival. Lee was a huge figure in the art scene since the early 90s. He was one of the co-founders of Lotus, and he served as its director from 1995 till 2014, and as its artistic director through 2017. And he was really, Lotus has been such a boon to the community, to those of us who live here, and also to many people who come from all over the Midwest and the country to enjoy the international musical acts that participate in Lotus. And it's thanks to his visionary leadership that is possible, and his legacy will live on as Lotus Festival continues. The second thing I wanted to mention is that on Monday is Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And as usual, the city of Bloomington is going to have a celebration of Martin Luther King Jr.'s birthday with a guest speaker, Dr. Tracy Parker of UC Davis, who's going to speak on the theme of soul, spirit, and sacrifice, honoring the legacy of Coretta Scott King and the women who faced America to save the nation, or the United States. The presentation of the Martin Luther King Jr. Legacy Award will also take place. And that celebration will start earlier than usual at 5:30 on Monday evening at the Buskirk-Chumley Theater, so that we can be finished in time to watch the college football championship at 7:30. So that is my report.
Thank you so much. Any other council members have reports? Councilmember Stossberg.
Thank you. I just wanted to give everybody an update about Plan Commission. We had our first Plan Commission meeting of the year on Monday night. It was a very long meeting because there were 3 petitions on it that all generated lots of discussion and interest. So I just wanted to give a short summary of those. The first one is the Trades District Hotel, and that was approved by Plan Commission with a set of conditions. Basically, they were following the UDO, and the conditions just have to do with things that still have to be ironed out, and those last things. And I did make sure, if you remember, we vacated part of the alley for that hotel, kind of on the promise that there was then going to be an L-shaped alley, and so new alley dedicated, new right-of-way dedicated, and that is in the plan. The other 2 petitions were forwarded to second readings. One of them was about a new subdivision off of Dunn Street that is being proposed kind of between Matlock Heights and Blue Ridge, and that also generated a lot of public comment. They're looking for a couple different waivers and then several variance approvals from the BZA ultimately. So sort of an interesting petition. And then the third thing that we talked about that also got forwarded was the Hopewell PUD. So y'all have heard about that already. It is like formatted a little bit differently, and staff had a lot of feedback around how it was formatted, and so I expect a lot of that to change. But if anybody has any desire to talk to me about either of those two that have been forwarded on to second petitions, let me know. Thanks.
Councilmember Ruff.
I'd like to announce that this coming Saturday, what is the date? The 17th of January, Councilmember Rowell and I will be hosting our monthly constituent meeting, and any constituent who's interested in joining us and discussing issues, city issues that are on their mind, can go to the city's website and find the link directly to our meeting, on our virtual meeting. Thank you.
Any other council member reports? All right, seeing none, am I correct, Attorney Lehner, that we do not have any mayoral or office presentations today?
That's correct.
Excellent. In that case, we will move on to appointments to boards and commissions. Council members may bring forward any motions at this point.
Point of order. Next thing on the agenda is council committees and then reports from the public.
Sorry, read this wrong. Sorry, say that one more time.
Well, council committees first, which I don't know that we have any, and then public comment.
Yes, I have. So something for council committees. I have a quick thing for council committees. I need to change officially the chair positions for the council committee for budget and the council committee for special processes. I had mentioned at the last meeting that Councilmember Piedmont Smith was going to chair budget, and that Councilmember Stossberg was going to chair the Committee on Special Processes, and I'm going to switch those appointments at the request of the council members. And also just wanted to state for the record, because I didn't mention this when we made appointments at our organizational meeting, that we're discontinuing the budget task force this year, so that's why we made no appointments to the budget task force. Anything else on council committees?
Yes, I have some appointments to make for the citizen committee members for Jack Hopkins social service grants. I move to appoint Catherine Ntiamoa and to reappoint Cameron Greer and Eddie Rue.
Second.
Okay, there's a motion and a second to appoint 3 people to the Jack Hopkins committee. Is there any discussion?
Is that in our packet somewhere and I missed it?
Sorry, can you repeat that?
Are those names in our packet somewhere and I missed it?
No.
Okay, can you, I missed the names then. Could you?
Yep. Catherine Ntiamoa, Cameron Greer, and Eddie Rue.
Okay.
Is there any questions or discussion? Seeing none, we have a motion and a second, so will the clerk please, actually, we can also do this by voice vote. So all those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. All those opposed? Any abstentions? That motion carries. Thank you very much. Are there any other motions for appointments? I believe none. Okay. Moving smoothly along, that means, unless I'm incorrect, that we're now moving to a time of public comment. This is an opportunity for members of the public to address the council on items not on our agenda. You'll have 3 minutes, and if you wish, please state your name for the record, if you want to say your name. But please do sign in at the dais. Those of you online, you can raise your hand to signal that you want to comment, and we will acknowledge you. So is there anybody in council chambers who would like to make public comment at this point? Seeing none. Is there anyone online? To the people online then.
My name is Kevin Keogh. I'm a lifelong resident of Bloomington, and I come before you again tonight out of genuine concern for transparency and accountability in our city government. Values that I believe most of you sincerely support and values that are essential to public trust. At the last council meeting, I spoke of the city's fiscal year 2024 annual comprehensive financial report. That report was due no later than September 30th, 2025, and was later promised by December 31st, 2025, and yet as of today is still not public available. For residents who care about fiscal oversight, this delay raises reasonable and legitimate questions. Since that meeting, I read just today a report about the Board of Public Works adoption of a new special events policy, and has further deepened my concern. During that meeting, a city official cited a very specific attendance figure for the 4th Street Festival, 1,700 attendees on Saturday and 1,600 on Sunday, based on data from a city's vendor, Placer.ai. These numbers were used to counter public testimony and to support policy decisions affecting a long-standing community event. However, a reporter in the past has requested records supporting these figures from Placer.ai. The city has responded to that reporter that no records exist because the data is live and is not saved. Respectfully, that explanation is troubling. I want to be clear about the perspective I bring. I'm a certified information systems security professional with over 25 years of experience as an IT auditor. In my professional career, data that is relied upon for decision-making, especially data cited in public forums, must be reproducible, retained, and subject to review. If information cannot be produced, examined, or validated, it should not be used as a basis for policy decisions. If data is reliable enough to be cited publicly and used to justify changes to a long-standing community tradition, then it should also be available for public scrutiny. Transparency is not optional. It is foundational to good governance. When financial reports are delayed, and when operational data is cited but cannot be produced, a pattern begins to emerge, one that erodes public trust, even among residents who want to believe in the integrity of their local government. I respectfully urge the council and the city leadership to ensure that records supporting public decisions are preserved, disclosed as required by law, and communicated clearly to the public. Bloomington's reputation for civic engagement and openness depends on it. Thank you for your time and your service to the community.
Also, thank you for keeping time, even though the clock was not on. That was fantastic. Are there any other commenters online? Anyone else in chambers who'd like to make a comment at this period? All right, seeing none, we are going to move on. I'm sorry, I muted myself. We have no legislation for first reading, and so we're going to move straight into legislation for second reading and resolutions. Do I have any motions?
I move that Resolution 2026-02 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. May the clerk please read. Oh, I'm sorry. Will the clerk, can we do this by voice vote as well? I'm sorry, novice here. Thank you very much. Okay, there's been a motion and a second to introduce, for this piece of legislation to be read by title and synopsis. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstained? That motion carries. Will the clerk please read?
Resolution 2026-02 to approve recommendations for distribution of community development block grant funds for 2026. The synopsis is as follows. The City of Bloomington is eligible for an estimated $778,293 in 2026 community development block grant funds from the United States Department of Housing and Urban Development. This resolution outlines program recommendations from the Citizens Advisory Committee and the Redevelopment Commission. Pursuant to federal regulations, CDBG allocations are made across the following general program areas: social services programs, physical improvements, and administrative services.
I move that Resolution 2026-02 be adopted.
Second.
Excellent. Is there anyone from the administration here to present on this resolution? Hooray!
Anna Killian-Hansen, the Director of Housing and Neighborhood Development, and I am joined this evening by our dedicated and talented staff, Matthew Swinning, our CDBG Physical Improvements Program Manager, and Cody Toothman, our Social Services Program Manager. Every year, we come before you as part of our Citizen Participation Plan to share the Community Development Block Grants, known as CDBG, recommendations from the Citizen Advisory Committee, which is why we are here tonight. Do you have the slides up? Okay, next slide. There we go. The Community Development Block Grant is a federal grant distributed via formula from HUD under Title I of the Housing and Community Development Act of 1974 as amended to states and local governments. Recipients use the grant funds to develop viable communities by helping to expand housing and economic development opportunities, principally for persons of low to moderate income. Next slide, please. Since Bloomington's population is greater than 50,000, we are considered an entitlement community, meaning we receive an annual allocation from HUD of these block grants. HUD determines the amount of each entitlement grantee's annual funding allocation by a statutory dual formula, which uses several objective measures of community needs, including the extent of poverty, population, housing overcrowding, age of housing, and population growth in relation to other metropolitan areas. There are other factors that contribute to determining the allocation amount as well, like the increase or decrease in the number of entitlement communities and past performance of the allocation recipients. Despite CDBG's success, more than $1.1 billion has been cut from the program since 2001. And I have a feeling that we're not done with those cuts. Next slide, please. HUD awards grants to entitlement community grantees to carry out a wide range of community development activities directed towards revitalizing neighborhoods, economic development, and providing improved community facilities and services. But all activities must meet a national objective. All activities must meet one of the following national objectives for the program: benefit to low and moderate income persons, prevent or elimination of slums or blight, and or urgent need, which fulfill community development needs that have a particular urgency because existing conditions pose a serious and immediate threat to health or welfare of the community. Next slide, please. 70% of CDBG funding allocations are federally required to meet the low to moderate income national objective. Benefit to low to moderate income individuals, also known as low to mod, is referred to as the primary national objective because federal regulations require that percentage. Next slide, please. Projects can serve specific needs, such as benefiting specific service areas where a population is more than 51% low to moderate income, activities that provide benefits to specific groups of persons designated as low to moderate income, activities that are undertaken for the purpose of providing or improving permanent residential structures, which upon completion will be occupied by low to moderate income households, activities that are undertaken for purpose of creating or retaining permanent jobs, at least 51% of are obtained by low to moderate income persons. Next slide, please. Statutory regulation requires that the allocations be divided into 3 categories: 20% for administration of the grant, 15% for social services, 65% for physical improvements. Next slide, please. Overall, in order to achieve the national objectives, the city allocates CDBG funds on an application basis each year. Subrecipients can apply for either physical improvement projects, such as acquisition, construction, or rehabilitation, or public service funding, such as childcare, youth services, food assistance. As you likely know, our HUD program year does not actually follow the calendar year. In fact, we are still in the middle of last year's program. We start our next program, 2026, which you're actually approving on June 1. Applications are released in our portal called Neighborly, which is online, and they start with initial information so we can get a basic understanding of the intended project and make sure that it qualifies. Every year we conduct mandatory training sessions to make sure that everybody is up to date and can comply with the regulations, and to be able to answer any questions that people have. The CAC, or the Citizen Advisory Committees, get organized and review those applications, and we have a public hearing where all applicants present their projects. At that point, the CAC gets together to provide scoring on the projects and then make their final recommendations. Once the recommendations are made, they go to the RDC for approval, and that again is part of the citizen participation plan for their involvement. And then finally, we land with you guys here tonight. These are all based on estimated allocations, as we won't actually know until this spring what they are, so contingency language is included in our recommendations. Next slide, please. The Citizen Advisory Committee is made up of 2 subcommittees, one for social services and one for physical improvements. Social service projects are for programmatic needs, where physical improvement projects are for physical construction or even land acquisition. The committees are made up of a representative from the RDC and City Council, and the remainder are mayoral appointments. Next slide, please. Each year, the HAND department gives the CAC an estimated allocation based on the previous year's final allocation, with contingencies for more or less funding. Using last year's allocation of $778,293, which breaks down to 20% for admin, $155,658.60, social services at 15%, which is $116,743.95, physical improvement projects 65% at $505,890.45. Next slide, please. Matt?
Physical improvements, we had a lot of good projects again this year, and I never envy the CAC for their difficult job of figuring out the allocations for the projects. The projects were for 2026, gym improvements and security access points added at Boys and Girls Club. Their request was for $169,000. The allocation ended up being $127,580. We had a project for group home flooring at 1701 East Winslow Road for Life Designs. They got an allocation of $19,420. We had a project for new fire panel at 338 South Washington Street for Middleway House. Their allocation was $11,334. We had a project for a build out of the basement area at the family shelter for New Hope for Families. Their request was $60,000. They received an allocation of $53,000. There was a project at Reverend Butler for redoing the playground and the courtyard. Their request was for $200,000, and they received an allocation of $150,000. And the last project was for My Sister's Closet, their new building at 1204 West 2nd Street. They're going to be doing major renovations there. They had requested $190,000 and received an allocation of $144,556.45. Thank you. Oh, no, I'm not done. But wait, there's more. So the contingency language. We always have to do the contingency language because stated earlier, we never know exactly what our allocation is going to be. So the contingency language for physical improvements is as follows. If CDBG funding for physical improvements exceeds $505,890.45, the additional funding will be used to fully fund projects in this order. First would be New Hope for Families. Second would be Summit Hill Community Development Corporation, BHA. Third would be My Sister's Closet. And lastly would be Boys and Girls Club. If the CDBG funding for physical improvements is less than $505,890.45, funding shall be reduced as follows. The first $12,000 will be taken from Summit Hill Community Development Corporation, and anything over that will be taken from My Sister's Closet. And now I'm done. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. For the social services projects for 2026, as you can see, encompasses a lot of essentially childcare, food, and homeless shelters, sorry. So first on my list is Community Kitchen with their free meals program, receiving a full ask of $25,000. Next, Beacon Inc. For the Friends Place Emergency Shelter for $20,000. Hoosier Hills Food Bank for their food distribution program at $20,000 as well. Boys and Girls Club for the Ferguson Crestmont Center After School Childcare and Education Programs at $18,000. And New Hope for Families, Childcare and Early Childhood Education, $18,000. And finally, Middle Way House for the New Wings Emergency Shelter at $15,744. Next slide. So for our contingencies, as Matt was talking about, what was decided on is that if the 2026 funding level is greater than the $116,743.95, the top 6 agencies will receive funding distributed evenly with no award to exceed their initial request, and no award may also go over $25,000. Let's see here. If the allocation is less than $116,743.95 and the amount is greater than $80,000 but less than $100,000, then we'd use the following percentages to calculate the award for the top 5 recipients. Community Kitchen would receive 22.5% of the total award that we are able to allocate. Beacon would receive 20%. Hoosier Hills Food Bank, 20% as well. Boys and Girls Club at 18.75%, and New Hope for Families at 18.75%. If the amount is less than $80,000, we would fund the top 5 agencies with no grant to go below $15,000. Any agency dropping below $15,000 would be eliminated and the funds redistributed to the others to achieve the minimum. Part of the reason for that is because the amount of administration it takes to manage these grants, as well as the audit requirements they go through, does make it quite expensive. At a certain point, the dollar amount getting too low would sadly just be almost a waste of their time in some respects. But on that, I'll take it back to Anna.
Next slide, please. CDBG is a highly impactful program that allows us to craft locally driven solutions to address urgent and important community development needs while relying on our community to guide us. In Indiana, from 2005 to 2023, more than 31,000 jobs were created or retained, 25,000 low to moderate income households were assisted, 853,000 people benefited from public improvements, and 2.7 million people benefited by public service. Tonight, as part of the final step in our citizen participation plan, we ask for your final confirmation of projects for our 2026 program year starting on June 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for that presentation. Do any council members have questions? I'll start with Councilmember Dumont-Smith.
Yes, thank you to all three of you for your work on this and the presentation. The Citizens Advisory Committee is pretty large for each program. Is that dictated by federal rules that it has to be that size?
No, it's localized, so we adopt a citizen participation plan, and I believe the last time that it was updated was probably around 2023, 2022, 2023, I believe. So it's something that we adopt, actually. I will say membership has been challenging for the CAC. There have been years where we haven't really had enough people, and it's usually a lot of calling folks to try and get them to apply. So if there's anybody listening tonight that would like to participate in this really good cause, please sign up to do so. We could use as many folks to input as possible.
So to follow up on that is, that's not something we can change at this point? We would have to wait, or how could we change that locally if we're having trouble recruiting?
That is a very good question. I think that it is something that we are able to change. It's not easily changed though, so we have to go through a process of having public hearings and making sure that the community has a chance to weigh in on those participation plans. I mean, I think that they really push towards as much transparency as possible to make sure that folks are really being involved from our community and we're not making decisions in silos.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Rallo, sorry.
Thank you for your presentations. So I note this perennially, I suppose, that CDBG funding has declined over the years, and now it's really in threat of being eliminated if the Trump administration would have their way. Fortunately, Congress has resisted that. However, it has been falling, and I understand that probably the reconciliation between the House and Senate will cut it even further. Just to give a perspective, when I joined the council about 20 years ago, or a little more, we got $8 billion was distributed. Today it's $3.3 billion. It's going to be less than that. Back in the 1980s, it was 20 billion, nearly 20 billion. I guess my point is that these are our tax dollars that we send to Washington, and we're getting fewer and fewer back for low-income earners, basic needs in the community. And we have some mechanisms to compensate. One of them is Jack Hopkins funding. And so that's why perennially, again, I try to advocate for more, even though I understand that we're under a crunch as well in terms of, restrictions by state and taxes and so forth. I guess my question then is, how do you see compensating in the future for these cuts? Jack Hopkins is one mechanism. Mm-hmm. Are there other things we can be doing to make up the difference?
It's a really good question, and I think that will boil down to each year's budget requests, to be perfectly honest with you. But I think that there are ways that we can work smarter and not harder with our funds. I think that if we are able to collaborate on which projects we're funding and prioritize as a group, not just with Jack Hopkins independently and CDBG independently, but maybe collaboratively so that we can meet everyone's community needs. I think that there are times when projects may be funded by multiple organizations and we don't necessarily know about it. So maybe a little bit more collaboration could help stretch the dollar a little bit further, would be my hope. But we haven't crossed that bridge and we haven't had to yet. So I'm really actually dreading the time when CDBG may or may not get cut. Because look, we have 2 to 3 times the funding requests than funding. So it is incredibly challenging. And our social service agencies really rely heavily on this funding every year. But I also think that, we are restricted with our projects by what is applied for. So if we have community needs that aren't getting applications, then we really need to start working smarter about how we're addressing them, is just my personal opinion.
Mine too, thank you. And I wanted to just bring this up to be cognizant of our situation, and hopefully people across the political spectrum will contact their representatives and say this is unacceptable. This is our tax money. There are people in need. It's unconscionable that it continues to be cut. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Zulik.
Thank you all so much for working on this. This is one that I think we're all excited to hear about every year. Could you please speak to the timeline that recipients should expect to receive their grants, and what that timeline looked like in 2025 as well?
Sure. In 2026, you mean, or?
So for this upcoming year and this past year, both of them, please.
It's always so challenging. So we don't start our program year until June 1, but we don't always get allocation recommendations from the federal government on time. So we're required to close out the previous program year, and we can't start the new program year until they approve an annual action plan. So there are certain federally required steps that have to happen, and sometimes there's delays on those. Like the government shut down. We did not have any allocation recommendations on time this year, so everything was kind of pushed back. Add in, if it's a physical improvement project, we have to do, and there's ground disturbing activity, we have to do a pretty extensive environmental review. So that delays projects from starting. So there are just these steps that we have to take before we can actually execute agreements and get them out the door. So this past program year, we also had some shutdown time as well, which we're not allowed to execute agreements during a shutdown. So there's certain things that we can't do based on whatever the federal government is doing at the time. I'm a little bit worried about the January shutdown as well. We're timed on how fast we spend our money and how quickly these projects move, but we also have to meet these other federal requirements that slow them down. So for instance, the 2025 program year that we're in the middle of right now, agreements just got executed. So a lot of them are just getting off the ground right now. So it's reimbursement only. So it's not like we just write a check to them. They have to turn in receipts, they have to be vetted, they have to be vetted to make sure that they are qualified expenses as well. So there is a process. So they don't actually get their money until they've gone through our claim cycle, which is every 2 weeks. So we certainly try to get it out as fast as we can, but there's a lot of regulations to navigate.
Thank you. May I please ask a follow-up question? Thank you. Beacon in particular let me know that they have not received their 2025 grants. Would that fall under that same project? Okay,
Yeah,
thank you.
I think most of them have not. They're
Okay.
And as part of our citizen participation plan as well, one of the slowdowns is that we have to wait for an RDC meeting to approve those contracts before they can ever get executed as well. So there's just kind of a lot of hoops to jump through. And as a matter of fact, there are projects from previous program years that haven't even started yet.
Oh, wow.
And that's not our fault. It's just the speed at which their projects are moving forward. So.
Okay, thank you so much. I'll let them know they should expect to hear shortly, soon, at some point.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Flaherty.
And listen for the presentation. I wanted to double check something, which is that the 20% on administration is a cap, but not a requirement, right? We could spend less or none.
That is a good question, and I'm actually going to defer to my colleagues on this one, to Cody on the admin.
And just to clarify, my question isn't how much it costs us to run administration. It's rather, do federal laws require us to spend 20% of the funds on administration?
It's a cap, for sure. I believe.
Yeah, so on administration, if we should not expend the administrative part of it, it can turn into physical improvement money. But, just like everything else, there are lots of costs that go into the administration of this, software costs that we have and everything. So We rarely do not make it through our administrative money, but to answer your question, yes, it could be turned into physical improvement money only.
Okay, thank you.
The social services funding is capped. They will not go above that percentage, even though they should.
Other questions, colleagues? Councilmember Stassberg.
Administrative money also a reimbursement then?
It is based on time. So there's a whole federal system for tracking time and how we're doing that. We have to draw down money within a certain amount of time to have it apply towards our timesheets, that kind of thing. So, yeah, there are a lot of regulations related to that. And we also can use the admin money for things like phase ones, just to help prop up those environmental concerns.
Great, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Any other questions? Councilmember Piedmont Smith.
Yes. Does membership on one of the Citizens Advisory Committees actually require citizenship, since it's called Citizens Advisory Committee?
Boy, I'm not sure about that. I wouldn't think so.
And if not, can we call it something else, like Residents Advisory Committee?
Yeah, it is in that CPP, that Citizen Participation Plan. So I personally would like to change the CPP, hopefully, in the next year. One of the things that our current CPP does not allow is that, for instance, when we put things out to public notice, it won't allow us to use a website or use online. I think we're spending quite a bit of money for publishing fees, which I think we could continue as well, but there should be more than one mechanism that would count for notification. So there are just some things in that need to be adjusted to be more with the times, in my opinion. So when we're looking at that would be the perfect time to kind of look at that verbiage, and that hadn't clicked for me, so I apologize.
So is that something that is periodically updated, that Citizens Advisory Plan, or just something that you're looking to update in the next year or two?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be updated. My predecessor had updated a couple things in there as well. And so we certainly can do that at any point. It's just going to take a little bit of time because there are those public hearing requirements, and they have to review some of the language as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? All right, seeing none, we'll now move to a period of public comment. If any member of the public wishes to comment on Resolution 2026-02, now is your time to do that. And I see some coming. So just as a reminder, if you'd like to say your name, please do, and otherwise please sign in. For those of you online, please raise your hand.
Evening, council members. My name is Terry Amsler. I wasn't planning to speak with you. I'll try to make this brief. I speak, Tim Still is a resident of Bloomington. However, by information only, I'll say I was part of the CAC, the CDBG, CAC Social Services Committee, just informationally. And I will say also I appreciate the support of the staff for all the work that goes into this work, for these CAC-like work. Just random, this is a random thought. It goes part to the Councilmember Rallo's concerns about the dollar amounts. And while I recognize the concern with working better, working well, working collaboratively, there is this dollar amount itself, what's happened over time. And so I would appreciate it within reason, within the world that we live in, for the city to make statements about this back to decision makers who decide on these matters about this issue and what it means and for these dollar amounts to be reduced to the significant degree that they are, given the already limited amount, particularly because of my particular interest in the social services side. Lastly, I swear, the issue of participation, which was a comment about the numbers and so forth and so on. As you know, I have sometimes spoken before about this whole question of the city's attention to public engagement and public participation. I would just say that for myself, I've done this a couple times now. I got dropped once because I forgot to, I didn't see the email about saying I wanted to re-up. and it was too late to do it, so I waited, and the next administration, the mayor kindly appointed me back again. So I think there's a fair amount of work yet to be done across city agencies, commissions, and boards and related about participation and recruitment, if you will, and knowledge of community participation and who participates. I think, particularly speaking only for myself, for the Social Services Committee of the CDBG Fund Development Committee, the numbers there were really helpful to have a perspective across these decisions that had to be made about recommendations. It could be done more effectively and efficiently, yes. Could it be done as well with a smaller number? Maybe not. So it goes back to what the old public engagement interests and perspectives are and learnings by the city, thinking back, finally, I swear, now really, to the city's comprehensive plan and what it says there about public engagement and how very little attention is ever given to what it says and how we're doing. And I'm done. Thank you very much.
Thank you for the comment. Are there any other people who wish to comment at this time? No one online? Anyone in Chamber of Commerce? Chamber of Commerce. In the chamber. All right, seeing none, we'll now go to council member comment. Councilmember Daley, I just realized I was muted that whole time, sorry.
You speak loud enough, fortunately. Thank you. Yes, so I was fortunate enough to serve on the social service side of the CDBG this term, and I really enjoyed doing it. It was very, very different work than the way we approached the work in the Jack Hopkins Social Service grant funding. So it was really enlightening to be a part of both of those teams to see how this is done. It was also incredibly hard work and frustrating. First, I want to give a big shout out to the staff. Thank you so much for all of that hard work you do. Cody, I think you probably have the patience of, I don't even know what, you had unbelievable patience with us, because I know we were all over the map at times, so thank you very much. Mr. Amsler served with me, thank you. That was really good work that you did too, but like I said, it's really frustrating because there's not enough money to go around for all of these requests. The social services were so low funded, we only get the 15% of that, and it was not a lot of money to work with, and we had so many requests coming in for so much more than we had to give out, and many agencies, unfortunately, were excluded, and that was not something that we took lightly. I just wanted to, let any of the agencies who might be listening know, who did not receive any of the funding, that it weighed heavily on us, and we really wished we could have done more. But thank you for this opportunity to be able to serve and be part of this.
Anybody else with comment? Councilmember Rallo?
First, I want to say thanks to Mr. Amsler for always being an advocate for public engagement and also transparency. And I agree with you that, these sorts of things can be kind of arcane or obscure over time, and people don't necessarily follow what we're doing. But we really should be talking about the erosion of much needed funds for our community and the implications of that. And this takes the form, as we know, of incremental cuts over time. So perhaps this year the federal government will only cut a couple $100 million from 3.3 to 3.1, but the trend has been a reduction, and it's significant over time. And it also should be reflected that we're getting less money simply because even if it was frozen, inflation, of course, will eat away at that dollar amount. So I also want to thank staff, Director Gillian Hansen, for your work on this. And I guess it's incumbent on us to make this known, both to the public. I hope the press covers this. And also to our representatives, and it's probably also incumbent on us to make sure that we try to fill the gap in the form of Jack Hopkins funding and what other whatever other means that we have to do so, because the need remains or increases over time, and so we have to do what we can. So that's all. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? Excellent. I would just like to say that I know we've had a lot of discussions, and I think it might be useful for all of us to continue to maybe work on this, but both the question of how do we share information better between Jack Hopkins and CDBG. I know they're on different timelines, but maybe that actually might help a little bit in sort of feeding information from CDBG into Jack Hopkins and vice versa. And then similarly, if any of my colleagues would like to think about, for example, writing a resolution that we can send once passed to our members of Congress and Senate, sort of just showing the support to this and what it's done in our community, I think would be a welcome thing to do as a council. So if there's no motions and no comments, I will ask the clerk to, oh, can I do this one by voice vote? To call the roll then.
Strasburg? Yes. Piedmont Smith? Yes. Zulik?
Yes.
Asari?
Yes.
Daly?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff? Yes. Thank you.
That motion passes 8-0. Thank you very much for your time. Yes, tag teaming in WrestleMania 2026. We'll now move on to Ordinance 2026-03. Are there any motions?
I move that Ordinance 2026-03 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Will the clerk please read? Sorry, sorry. All those in favor of reading Ordinance 2026-03 by title and synopsis, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Will the clerk please read?
There we go. Ordinance 2026. I'm going to try this again. Ordinance 2026-03 to amend Ordinance 2025-40 to fix the salaries of appointed officers, non-union, and AFSCME employees for all the departments of the City of Bloomington, Monroe County, Indiana for the year 2026. The synopsis is as follows. Ordinance 2026 -03 amends Ordinance 2025-40, the 2026 appointed and AFSCME employee salary ordinance to align with the approved 2026 work agreement between Local 2487 CBME, AFSCME, and the City of Bloomington, and makes other amendments to formalize the salary ordinance with city pay policy.
I move Ordinance 2026-03 be adopted.
Second.
Thank you. I believe we have Dr. Pachak here to present on the ordinance.
Yes, good evening. Shar Pachak, Human Resources Director. Happy New Year, everybody. I am here to present the salary ordinance amendments tonight, and these amendments align with the AFSCME, the newly negotiated AFSCME work agreement. And I just want to take a moment to reiterate that this agreement has already been voted on, and it was passed 82-7 in December. And I just want to stress this because I believe that the highlights that I will share tonight really represent the voices of the union leadership being heard and the response from the administration. And this was 9 months of conversation with the negotiation team. And so it's interesting to me how you can have 9 months worth of meetings and then I can summarize everything in like one sheet of paper. So I just want to stress that. But what you will see in the salary ordinance amendments is like some administrative cleanup. So there's some language that we cleaned up, outdated language or language that we just basically just did not use. For example, like gain sharing information. We don't have a policy. We don't have a procedure related to that. So it was just lending itself to more confusion than it was clarity. So you'll see changes like that. We also addressed some of the concerns that we've heard since I started with some of the grade designations in the salary ordinance. So there were U designations from the utilities employees, those AFSCME positions. And so we cleaned those up so that we just had like more consistency, more synergy across the different departments that have these employees represented. So that was a response to some of the concerns that we've heard. So we were able to manage and clean those things up. You will also see in this salary ordinance amendments some pay structure changes. One of the things that I definitely want to highlight is that we updated and enhanced the steps, the longevity step progression for the AFSCME employees. This is an opportunity for basically for them to earn more money faster, and who doesn't want to do that? So that was a great recommendation that we had from our consultants that worked on this project, and we adopted it, and we think it's a great thing because not only is it a recruitment tool, but it is also a retention tool. So again, it primarily will allow employees to earn money faster. So that's a good thing. You'll also see some adjustments related to premiums and allowance and some additional training and professional development opportunities within the contract. Some of those increases include on-call pay, tool allowances, shoes and clothing allowances, and also shift premiums. So increases to basically address our desire to be competitive and to actually respond to some of the requests that we received. There's also some incentives that are represented in this salary ordinance for AFSCME, and that includes like CDL incentives. So if the city needs additional CDL employees to address projects or just on-demand need, we have additional employees that can earn a CDL and get some additional compensation for that to help out with city operations. And there are other training and recertification costs that are also included that I believe are going to be beneficial for AFSCME employees. And so those are the highlights related to that AFSCME agreement. In addition, the salary ordinance also includes information related to relocation incentive. And so that is something that maybe existed in the city before. I don't know, it's new since I've been here, but it's an opportunity for us to have additional tools in our toolkit to recruit hard to fill positions, specifically hard to fill positions. And then we also have some clarity in here about a cap at step 3 for grade 14 positions. Those are department heads, and that is a compensation management decision, and it is considering budget constraints for our highest paid positions. So I am happy to answer any questions that you have. I have Deputy Mayor Knapp here, and City Attorney Brittingham is here, and HR Assistant Director Kanye to help me address questions depending on what questions you have.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? All right. With that, if there's no questions at this time, we'll go to a period of public comment. Same as last time. Second verse, same as the first. If you would like to comment, please come to the microphone. If you're online and would like to comment, please tell us so by raising your hand. Are there any commenters online? Any commenters here? With no comment, I will move back to council. Are there any comments amongst council members? Please, Councilmember Piedmont-Smith.
Well, just thanks to everybody who was involved in this 9 months of negotiations and discussions. Also, I'm pleased to see the relocation incentive be included in the ordinance. It's always good to be as transparent as possible about the tools that the city is willing to use for employment. And I know relocation is very expensive, and I'm glad that we have that option to get good folks here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Express appreciation to all of the folks on the negotiation team, the AFSCME union leaders and all the city staff. I know that was really hard work doing those negotiations. I heard about it from a distance, and I'm just really glad that that there was agreement reached that everybody seems really happy with. So thank you. All right. If there are no more comments, going once
Any others? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Strasburg? Piedmont Smith?
Yes.
Zulik?
Yes.
Vasari?
Yes.
Daley?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Flaherty?
Yes.
Thank you.
That passes with a vote of 8-0. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you for your continued support.
Absolutely. We're now moving to the next thing. Are there any motions?
I move that ordinance 2026-02 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signal by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? All right. Will the clerk please read?
Yes. Ordinance 2026-02 to amend Title 20, the Unified Development Ordinance of the Bloomington Municipal Code regarding response to Resolution 2025-17 related to amending the eligibility subsection, the qualifying standards for plan unit development subsection, and defined term section of Title 20. The synopsis is as follows. This ordinance amends Title 20, the Unified Development Ordinance, in the following manner. 1, it reduces the area median income eligibility percentage requirements for incentives in 20.04.110C2. 2, it revises the qualifying standards for plan unit developments in 20.02.050B3. And 3, it eliminates the definition of workforce housing from defined terms in 20.07.010, Title 20, the Unified Development Ordinance.
Ordinance 2026-02 be adopted.
Wonderful. We have Director Scanlon here to present. Take it away, ma'am.
Thank you. Good evening. Jackie Scanlon, Assistant Director of Planning and Transportation. We are looking at 2026-02, maybe. Here we go. I'm going to see if this will work. No, I don't think it's going to work. Oh, did it? No. Let me try. Okay. Okay, thank you. At least it's going to help me. Thank you, Ms. Lerner. Okay. Ordinance 2026-02 is in response to Resolution 2025-17, as was said in the synopsis, and there are 3 relevant sections in that resolution that dictate what is in the ordinance. So I'm just going to briefly go through what those 3 are. Before I do that, this petition was heard at the November 10th, 2025 Plan Commission hearing, and the Plan Commission did vote to amend the petition in order to adjust percentages to whole numbers. That is reflected in the version you got. And then the Plan Commission voted to send the petition to the Common Council with a positive recommendation. So there are 3 items here that are discussed. The first is Section 2 with an amendment to the section of our Unified Development Ordinance, which is Bloomington Municipal Code 20.04.110C2, with a very specific directive to include an AMI requirement within Tier 1 and Tier 2 as follows. Tier 1 to include at least some of the units priced below 90% of area median income, while using whole percentages, which the amendment corrected, and then Tier 2 to include at least some units priced below 70% of area median income, again using whole percentages. Section 3 calls for the Plan Commission to prepare a proposal to amend the text of 20.02.040B3, qualifying standards for a plan unit development, to adjust the minimum qualifying standards for affordability so that such developments using the plan unit development section will meet or exceed Tier 1 affordability standards. And Section 4 required that we obviously make any other changes in the UDO that are necessary to achieve the objectives in the sections above. Okay, next page. So I'll show you, I know it's kind of small, and also obviously you can find the UDO online. This is the text from 2004-110C2. So 2004-110C2 has 2 sections, A and B, and so you can go to the next slide, Lisa. For Section A, This is where we are amending to the 90% for Tier 1 and the 90 and 70 for Tier 2. So the way Tier 2 has worked historically, half of the units have to be at or below one level, and half of the units have to be at or below another level. So again, we changed that. Instead of half and half, Housing and Neighborhood Development was finding that difficult. So we changed those to full percentages, 7 and 8. And then we changed the percentages of AMI to 90 and 70 to reflect more accurately the numbers here in Monroe County, so that we are capturing those that could benefit from this type of incentive being used. You can go to the next slide, please. So then in the qualifying standards for PUD, number 3 is the one that is to be changed. When residential dwelling units are proposed, previously in a plan unit, or right now in a plan unit development, a minimum of 15% of the total dwelling units must be permanently income limited. And then it references earning less than 120% of HUD AMI, which was used to be analogous to what our Tier 1 percentage was. But because we're changing that, instead the resolution dictated that we change this language to match Tier 1. So you can go to the next slide, please. Oh, I think you're stuck in the Zoom. Sorry, Lisa. Oh, yeah, there we go, thank you. So we changed the language to do just that. So total dwelling number units proposed must include at a minimum the percentage of permanently income limited units required in the Tier 1 section in a different part of the code. So we added that reference directly. And then there's one more. We found, as you know, the workforce housing definition is not used in the code, and because it references Tier 1 and the 120%, we, next slide please, are proposing to remove that. The Plan Commission is. And that's all I have. I can answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Are there any questions? If there are none, I will go to public comment. Now is the time if any member of the public wishes to comment on Ordinance 2026-02. You may do so at this time. Is there anybody in council chambers who would like to comment? Anyone online? All right, we'll come back to Assistant Director Scanlon. And does anyone have any questions at this time? All right, or any comments? Councilmember Strasburg.
I'll go ahead with a comment. I was the one that authored this resolution in the beginning, and it's been quite a journey. And so I just want to thank the Planning Department. I want to thank Ms. Scanlon. I also want to thank the HAND Department and Director Killian Hansen for helping craft the original resolution and come. There were several Plan Commission meetings and et cetera, and so I just want to express that appreciation, and I'm really glad that this change is officially happening. Thank you.
Thank you. Others? All right. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Councilmember Piedmont Smith? Yes. Zulik? Yes. Lasari?
Yes.
Daly? Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Flaherty? Yes. Strasburg? Yes. Thank you.
That motion passes 8-0. Thank you so very much. Maybe we'll have one more item.
I move that ordinance 2026-01 be introduced and read by the clerk by title and synopsis only.
There is a motion and a second. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Seeing none. Clerk, please read.
Ordinance 2026-01 to amend Title 20, the Unified Development Ordinance of the Bloomington Municipal Code regarding response to Resolution 2025-12 related to amending the affordable housing incentives and payment in lieu provisions. The synopsis is as follows. Ordinance 2026-01 amends Title 20, the Unified Development Ordinance in the following manner. One, it increases the maximum impervious surface coverage allowance for single-family detached and duplex residential lots in the R1, R2, R3, and R4 zoning districts for owner occupancy projects using the affordable housing incentives. Two, it increases the maximum impervious surface coverage allowance and decreases the landscape area for projects that meet Tier 2 affordability standards. And three, it increases the dollar amount of and eligibility for payments in lieu of providing housing.
I move that ordinance 2026-01 be adopted.
Fantastic. To you again.
Right. Jackie Scanlon, Assistant Director of Planning and Transportation. We are now looking at ordinance 2026-01, which is in response to Resolution 2025-12. All right, we can go to the next one. All right, so similar to the previous ordinance we just discussed, Resolution 2025-12 specifically dictates sections to be amended, and so there are two that were discussed in this resolution. So the first, sorry, let me tell you what Plan Commission said, just a sec. All right, this petition was also heard at the November 10th, 2025 Plan Commission hearing. And they voted to amend the petition in order to add wording that requires reference to the administrative manual, which is included in what you received. They had a harder time with this one, and they voted to send the petition to you with no recommendation. All right, so Resolution 2025-12, again, which this ordinance is based on. Common Council directing the Plan Commission to prepare a proposal consistent with the resolution to amend the text of UDO 20.04110 C5 to assess the incentive structure and consider creating additional incentives for affordable housing, including but not limited to expected owner-occupied unit development. Section 2, the council further directs Plan Commission to prepare a proposal to amend UDO 20.04.110 C7, the payment in lieu section, to assess the payment in lieu option and consider an increase in the qualifying standard for developments utilizing a payment in lieu procedure. Next slide, please. So we'll go over section 1. This is a very specific section called Affordable Housing Incentives that includes an A and a B. One is reduced bulk height requirements for developments occurring in the R1, R2, R3, and R4 zoning districts. So we were tasked with looking at those. And section B as well is applied to projects across the zoning districts, and we looked at that section as well. Next slide, please. Okay, so the first set of amendments under A, we clarified that the single family referenced here was intended to be detached single family, and put in the reference after the zoning districts saying that are also intended for owner occupancy. So again, the following dimensional standards shall apply to single family detached and duplex residential lots in the R1, R2, R3, and R4 zoning districts that are also intended for owner occupancy that meet either of the criteria in subsection 2 above. And so what we did here was we added an additional potential incentive, which is having the maximum impervious surface coverage being increased to 80%. So we can go to the next slide, please. That does sound like a lot. So here is a little visual that's kind of like maybe trying to explain the justification for allowing that. So if you have, X number of acres of land, and you are in a zoning district that requires 60% of that to be set aside, then if we're saying the smaller boxes on top of the black line on the left are the sizes of the houses that are being built, and the rest of it is being set aside to meet the 60% in a subdivision situation, then if all of those houses are of similar size, you'll get 6 houses. If you reduce the area that has to be set aside for impervious surface coverage, you can greatly increase, in this case double, the number of units that can be built. This is also written as a may. The maximum impervious surface coverage may be increased to 80%. So it is something that the Plan Commission, they are the ones that would be seeing petitions involving this potential incentive, would have to weigh if they felt that that it would be beneficial in order to allow it to increase up to 80% for each particular petition. And additionally, in a subdivision situation, those areas required for detention or retention are required on their own common area lots. And so those would still be set aside to meet whatever the drainage needs are of that subdivision. We had another question about the language that are also intended for owner occupancy. As you know, in Indiana, we cannot regulate who owns what, but because this is an incentive, if in order to use it, you're opting in, it's not a requirement. So legal doesn't love when we talk about whether or not something is owner occupied. So we've put it in this manner, and we're thinking that it would most likely be used in such a way that the developer would know that that's what they were intending, and then they would record some sort of zoning commitment to run with the land, that we would have to obviously come to an agreement with them in the Plan Commission about what intent means and how long they have to agree to that. So this is just kind of a soft entry into including owner occupancy as something that could give you greater incentives than you could get otherwise. And what else was I going to say about that? One of the projects that we looked at was the Mat Press project on the Beeline by Hopscotch. And so the single family lots there are over 90% covered. And so this would be less than that. One of the things we also looked at was Trailview, which was a habitat project up on the Beeline northwest of here. And most of those lots were about 60%. And so one of the things we kind of talked about internally was, you know, if it was 80, those houses could just be bigger for more people to be in. And also for someone like Habitat, who has in the past talked about potentially moving to a duplex model, having 80 may be able to just allow a home for one unit or two to just be larger and allow more space, living space, as a lot of those houses, for example, have a lot of outdoor storage, and that this could potentially allow for those to be greater. Okay. Yes, this is the other change in this section, thank you. So in the Tier 2 projects, we are also proposing an increase in impervious. So same argument as the one I just described, and that would just be an allowance of a 10% increase from whatever is allowed by the zoning district. Okay, next slide. Okay. So the other objective of the resolution was to amend the payment in lieu section. Next slide, please. So this is what it is. And we are only proposing an amendment to section A. So the dollar, I'll go ahead and read it out loud. The dollar amount provided as a payment in lieu of providing housing must be based on the minimum percentage of eligible units as described in the administrative manual. A payment in lieu option is only available in petitions for projects that contain more than 30 dwelling units. So the department reading of the resolution was that the council was looking for less payment in lieu and more units on site. And so one way to do that is to limit who can do payment in lieu. We have heard numerous times from hand director Killian Hansen that they do not have good luck with large projects that have units on site. So we still want to leave, obviously, an option for them to be able to use payment in lieu, even if we are limiting for the whole scape of who can do it. We don't want to limit it for larger projects that are less successful with having their own units. We have also heard her say that smaller projects usually are successful with units on site, and so we were trying to respond to the resolution here by in some way kind of limiting the payment in lieu availability that we thought the resolution was calling for. Next slide. Okay, so part of this is that the specifics live in the administrative manual. So this is a red line, it was in the packet, of what the changes to the administrative manual would be. The first is clarifying that the count we're using for percentages is units, not beds, because they didn't used to match in the administrative manual and the Unified Development Ordinance. We would be proposing to increase the eligible unit calculation to 30% of the total project dwelling units. So if you're building units on site, you have to set aside 15% of your units. to the percentages listed in whichever tier you're using. If you don't want to build them on site and you want to give us money instead, then we want the equivalent of 30% of your units to be the base for the calculation of what you are giving instead of giving units. And so we're proposing 30% here, again, clarifying that it's units. And we are proposing, this says that the current is 20,000 per unit, but it's actually 30,000. And we are proposing to increase that to 50,000. This number has been on the books since, I believe, 2021, so almost 5 years. It's only been increased once last year. It was not increased in the first year of the new administration, and the old administration didn't increase it either. The intent, as you can read in the administrative manual, is that it is to be revisited and increased every year. So Director Killian Hansen did increase that last year to 30,000. We are proposing to raise that to 50,000, and that would apply to units containing 1 to 3 bedrooms. And by suggestion of Director Killian Hansen, we also included that for units with 4 or 5 bedrooms, an additional $5,000 be required for each of the additional bedrooms over 3. And so that would be a much more impactful amount in the payment in lieu amount than we currently receive. There have been questions when we have presented here before about what is the actual cost of losing a unit for a lifetime, and are we getting close to that cost? We probably aren't, based on numbers that I've heard Mr. Flaherty explain here before. And so we feel like moving from 30,000 to 50,000 is not inappropriate, considering we have only upgraded it once in the last 5 years, and considering the actual loss of money that the actual loss from losing the unit is probably far greater than we are capturing here. Last slide, please. Today, while I was at my son's soccer practice, I received an email with a potential amendment, so I have not had time to look at it. The idea is to address a difference of how the UDO treats multifamily and single-family units, and that it's hard to do permanent affordability in single-family. So this is the amendment. Let's see. As most of you know, the administration can't propose an amendment to something the Plan Commission sends you, but the mayor would like council to consider an amendment to this legislation, and then planning and council staff can work together to potentially create a proposal for the February 4th council meeting. One question we've had here many times that I do think needs to be addressed, and I feel obligated to say with my AICP, is that I don't actually know if this amendment can be done, because your resolutions were so specific about which sections can be edited. And that's an ongoing question that I think council and administration council will have to figure out. But I think the idea here is to be more careful or thoughtful about single-family development and how our incentives affect those, and allow them to still be functional for their potential owners. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you so much. Council, are you okay? Are there any questions amongst council members? Councilmember Rallo.
Yeah, I'd like to ask a question about the increase to 80% of impervious surface, which is pretty dramatic. I can't see the table now. But R1 had formerly 30%, and then it goes incrementally up, I think, to 50 by R4, right? So that's pretty dramatic. And, of course, we have stormwater problems ubiquitously throughout the community. It's something that we're obviously trying to compensate for lack of attention to this in the past. Yeah. So I'm quite reticent to make that leap of 80%. So what would be a stormwater retention requirement for 80% coverage of, say, an acre? You said that they would have a retention pond of some kind. But let's just imagine that you've got like successive rain events in the spring, which we do. It's almost monsoonal at times, right? you have rain every day and every other day. I mean, is this something that would be deployed to, realistically speaking, that it wouldn't overwhelm a retention?
Sure, I think it's a great question. Yeah, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Go ahead.
No, that's not.
Okay. I think it's a good question. In a subdivision situation where they're creating new lots, my understanding is that the City of Bloomington Utilities typically uses the maximum of what could be built as the base for figuring out what the detention requirement is. I don't know that they always did that when they weren't sure what was going to be built there, but that has been, I believe, the process for at least the last couple of years. So basically, when they're sizing the detention pond for a new subdivision, they will, if they use these incentives, and again, these are only for single-family and duplex projects, only in the R1 through R4, they would be using the assumption that 80% is covered in order to size the appropriate detention. So I think that in a subdivision situation, that would be adequate, because that is how they do it now, right? They size the detention based on how much is covered. So even if less is covered, they aren't, they aren't necessarily factoring in the open space to decide what the detention is. It's just the coverage space. I think the one where it may be more concerning to maybe is like a one-off project. But you think about this as the affordability incentives, it doesn't really make a lot of sense for someone. It's not going to happen really in a one-off situation, because why are they needing incentives? Usually so that they can get more units, right? So that the lots can be smaller and they can put more in. So we think that we will mostly see this in subdivision situations. Additionally, we don't see very many of these. I think we've seen one in the similar regulations were in the old UDO as well. Not the impervious surface, but the other ones in this section related to setbacks, and they just aren't typically widely used. So yeah, we would expect it in a subdivision situation where they were expecting to provide some probably high level of low-income housing.
How did you land on 80%?
Well, I looked at, as I said, we looked at some of the other projects in town. I was looking mostly at the affordable projects, actually, which seemed to hover, the ones I looked at seemed to hover around 60 to 65, and then I was trying to look at the sizes of the actual houses there compared to other similar single-family housing. That's kind of how I got to 80, like if they were grown to what would still be a reasonable size coverage, how much would they actually be covering on those lots, for example, in Trailview. We met with Councilperson Piedmont Smith, and that's when she asked about the map press project, and then I thought, oh yeah, I guess I should also be looking at market rate. In my mind, I was thinking of it as affordable. And yeah, the map press project covers quite a bit more, and obviously, had to work with City of Bloomington Utilities to figure out the detention at that location.
I've got another question, but I can continue. Okay, well, is this one of the reasons it was punted to us?
In what do you mean?
Well, with our recommendation. So the Plan Commission said.
Sure.
Council,
yes.
What was the reason?
Well, that's a great question. It was so long ago, but yes, I do believe this was one. I'm sorry, I should have reviewed that. Yeah, there were just some questions. Like, for example, you can see in the packet. Plan Commissioner Holmes had an amendment to just only require payment in lieu for everything, to just switch. And so there was some discussion about that, how deep do we want to get into all of these little incentives, or do we just want to kind of scrap the on-site incentives? So I think it's just a complicated issue, and they couldn't come to an agreement. And I don't believe all 9 were there.
Was a point of contention the impervious surface?
I do believe that the 80 was brought up. It was not the only, but it was discussed for sure.
Okay, thank you for that.
You're welcome.
Councilmember Stassberg?
Real quick on that question, because I'm the Plan Commission representative. In my memory, the impervious surface part was not the problem. It was the payment in lieu issue that
Thank you.
had the most conflict. But my question is, I guess my first question, I'm trying to go back to it now. When you're talking about the Tier 2 projects and the maximum impervious surface increase the allowance by 10%, and then it says may decrease the landscape area by 10%, does that mean you're actually increasing by 20%? Or is
No.
that like the same 10%?
Yes, it's the same. It's two sides of one coin.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure of that. That's what I thought, but I wasn't sure. And then the other question that I have, can I ask the second one? Is whether the proposed changes to the administrative manual have actually been changed in the administrative manual, because council, of course, doesn't do that. That's just up to the hand director. So has that officially been changed for 2026 at this point?
No. So we're waiting till this goes through, and we will change it based on what happens here.
Okay, thank you.
Other questions? Might I ask, you said that the mayor, and I saw the mayor come in right as you started, had a proposed amendment. I'd be interested to hear maybe from the mayor about what that amendment, what the concern is trying to address. So, Mayor Thompson.
Yes, thank you for your consideration. The proposed amendment, and we are totally fine doing this at a later time and tabling this discussion. But the proposed amendment seeks to make this feasible for owner-occupied as well as rental. And what's happening in the finance community, what has been happening for a long time, is when you put a deed restriction on something that says permanent affordability, what the mortgage market does is say, we're not lending on it. And it suppresses the comps if you can get a mortgage on it. Frequently, in my experience, local lenders will not lend on it because it's such a limited market that you can sell to. The amendment essentially gives flexibility so there's not a deed restriction, and so that we can find other mechanisms to ensure that the property stays affordable without limiting the mechanism by which we are ensuring affordability. So, for instance, we could do a shared equity agreement with a second soft mortgage, et cetera, but we would need to set up some kind of infrastructure to do that if it is the intention of the Plan Commission and the Council to in essence, make these permanently affordable. So this amendment was seeking to be a happy medium so that we could still get people who don't already have wealth into owner-occupied units. I also just wanted to make a small correction to the record about the impervious surface on the Trailview neighborhood, which I was the developer on and spent years looking at those potential plat maps. We would not have increased square footage on those houses. My recollection is if we could have gotten up to 80% impervious on that, we would have had 6 additional units, thereby reducing the total cost of land and infrastructure per unit quite significantly. So the more units you can get into a neighborhood, it directly affects the affordability of each of those units, obviously.
Thank you, Mayor Thompson.
Yes.
Any questions regarding, we should use different language here, but the concern that the mayor has raised, if any? Okay. Please, Councilmember Flaherty.
Just a clarifying question. Something was displayed on screen, but we don't have an amendment drafted or anything in our packet.
Correct. That's why I just said we should use different language.
Yeah.
So I think
Yes. That sort of proposed change.
Exactly. Yep.
Okay. Just confirming. Thank you.
Councilmember Sassberg.
Yeah, Mayor Thompson, you started out your sentence by saying that it makes this feasible for owner occupancy, and I was wondering what you meant by this, because like whether it specifically meant the affordable part that we're amending right now in terms of the R1 through R4 with single family and duplex, or whether it meant the larger affordability incentive section, which also includes multifamily structures.
Yeah, so I am suggesting that in all of our ordinances, this is the one in front of us, that if we're talking about affordability incentives, we need to have consideration for owner-occupied. And so my ask would be change the language to accommodate owner-occupied. If we want people to actually be able to climb out of poverty and end generational poverty, the way that we do that in this country frequently is through ownership. And I believe it is, it's what people need in our community.
I don't know if it's a follow-up or a whole nother one, but just for clarification, since we don't have the amendment in front of us, and this might be a question for Attorney Lehner, this amends a section of the UDO that is not currently being amended by this ordinance.
Yes, that's my understanding. We just received this language, so we've not had a chance to really study it, and this is a legal question that would need to be answered.
Okay.
I will state that the Plan Commission came up with this challenge on Monday night when considering one of the projects in front of them on Monday night. The affordability question in owner-occupied came up, and whether or not we could lend on it.
Councilmember Piedmont-Smith.
Yeah, so just to clarify, I mean, the ordinance in front of us tonight does have a section trying to incentivize owner-occupied affordable housing. So what you're saying is there needs to be a better mechanism to ensure the affordability of those units? Is that what I'm understanding?
To ensure that you can actually build them in the first place. If you can't lend on them, you can't build them. And what we're trying to do, obviously everybody's intent, is to incentivize affordable housing. And so as a government, we want to do that in a way that it can actually be accomplished. And writing into any code restrictions that end up making it impossible to develop that way does not achieve the goal.
May I ask a quick clarifying question, Mayor Thompson, maybe which sort of clarifies the questions that have been asked. What is it in the amendment, in the amendment to the UDO, so not the proposed amendment, what is it in the language that we're voting on today that presents the problem that you're seeing? Is this a thing that exists in the UDO currently, or is it a change that we're voting on today that you think is going to lead to this problem?
It exists in the UDO today, and you are confirming it by changing this part as well. So I am suggesting let's not continue to confirm a problem.
Thank you. Councilmember Zulik?
Thompson, I'm certainly not opposed to the change. I'm mostly asking a question about, is this feasible to do the change today, or is this something that we would need to hear for a third reading in order to make that amendment correctly?
I'd like to speak to that, please. My recommendation would be to have a third reading on this question on February 4th. The 90-day deadline expires after February 4th. By our calculation, it's February 18th, so there is sufficient time for council staff to review this and resolve any legal questions, while also communicating with the planning department staff and potentially with the legal department. At the same time, this would provide an opportunity in the event that a council member is interested in potentially sponsoring an amendment of this nature.
Thank you. May I please ask a follow-up question? Mayor Thompson, does that timeline work with you?
It does. I'm not able to be here on February 4th, but I think it can be handled by staff. I mean, we just need to get the theory into practice so we can actually build affordable housing.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rallo.
Well, if there are no other questions, I'd like to make a motion to postpone consideration of, yes.
Councilmember Rallo, did you say if there are no other questions?
Yeah, that is what he said. So I think others have questions.
Well, I got a nod from the chairs.
Well, you can, to be clear, you can make a motion anytime you want. But so, if you want, do you want to make the motion?
It's going to end debate if I make a motion and have a second, is it not?
It's totally up to you. You can motion and we can discuss it.
Well, Mr. President, if there are other questions, then
Yeah. Okay.
we can
Let's respect your wishes. Other questions? Councilmember Piedmont-Smith.
Yeah, regarding the payment in lieu revision, so this is probably for Ms. Scanlon. So do I understand correctly that the proposal that would be in the administrative manual to increase the amount to $50,000 is not based on the actual value of that the affordable housing would provide, that the lower rates attached to the lease of the affordable housing over a period of 99 years, that was not considered when coming up with the amount for payment in lieu. Is that correct?
Correct.
Because I understand, and I've had some back and forth conversations with Ms. Kelly Hansen about payment in lieu, and so I'm just wondering. I'm not fundamentally opposed to payment in lieu, but could we consider a more rational mathematical basis for the amount?
You all
how
can
would we do
amend
that?
However you'd like. Yeah.
But since this is in the administrative manual, how would we go about doing that?
Sure. I think we would have to probably rely on calculations done by the Housing and Neighborhood Development Department related to how much that particular unit loss is over time.
So how would we as a council?
Sure. If you do decide to postpone, we can work on that before the February hearing as well.
Yeah, I guess I'm just, since it's administrative manual, I'm just like, how do we have any impact on that since it's not in code?
Sure.
Is that just an understanding that we then develop or something?
That's a good question. I mean, yes, so the administration gets to set that number. So ultimately, the way that we have done it, since it was written 5 years ago, the directors of HAND and ESD have determined what that number is. So yes, they would have to be on board with that, but we can work with Director Killian Hansen, Director Cooper Smith, and see, if there's a way to present to you what that number would be, and then a reasoning why or why not we would be changing to that.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Other questions or motions? Councilmember Strasburg.
Postpone ordinance 2026-01 to our next meeting on February 4th.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is this a debatable motion?
Yes.
It is? Okay, any discussion? Please, Councilmember Strasburg.
I just want to say that the purpose of once again, this was my resolution in the beginning that led to this ordinance, was to actually get more affordable housing accomplished. And I agree with the mayor that lending can be a roadblock. I have some hesitancy about whether putting an amendment into this kind of amendment into this ordinance is the right legal move, but I'm really happy to give it a couple weeks and have the attorneys figure that out. And if it, is decided, I'm happy to help work on that and sponsor that amendment. And if it's decided that that's not the way to go, I'm also happy to work on this through the Plan Commission with an entirely new modification to the UDO. Thanks.
In terms of discussion here, I might ask, it's totally up to you all, but I think it might be worth having public comment just because we're considering amendments. I think our intention is clear to postpone. Whether or not we vote for that is a different question, but I would ask that we rather have public comment and then postpone if at all possible, but leave that to the motion maker, motioneer.
Oh, so you want me to withdraw, so then we can have public comment, and then I'll make the motion again?
That would be my preference, but I have no say in this matter.
That's fine with me. I'll withdraw my motion so that we can have public comment, and then I'll make it again happily.
Wonderful. Okay, so with that, I'd like to move to a period of public comment on ordinance 2026-01. If you're wanting to speak on this online, also raise your hand. Please sign in and state your name for the record if you're able to.
Good evening, Mr. President. This is Christopher MG from the Greater Bloomington Chamber of Commerce, and I want to thank the mayor for stealing my thunder. I was just about to bring up the deed restrictions. That was talked about the Plan Commission meeting on Monday from Stephen Bishop, the Bish from First Financial Bank, on what that means as far as the lending market goes. And what we have to do is make sure the process works to achieve our goals. And I originally was going to talk about sort of adding from the last amendment with the PUDs and affordability of housing and how I don't think that quite works, but I punted for this one just to bring up a couple things from that same November Plan Commission meeting. Commissioner Holmes's amendment, which I was for, which was kind of get rid of the units on site aspect. And while I think it's commendable and the intentions were great, I think the collection recovery, the admin cost to do it was just not feasible to what the goal was. So the payment in lieu, I think, was just a much cleaner version. And Ms. Hansen made a great report, I think, sometime last year on where those funds were being used. And it just is a much cleaner fit. And I think one thing on these, when we talk about affordability and we're talking about developers, is somewhat some flexibility and not adding complication. There was an interim report from IU on housing and how in Monroe County, which does include the county government as well as ours, our development takes, I believe it was 14 months compared to the rest of the state, which is 5. So complexity is our enemy, and to make sure that we are sort of streamlining the processes on this, and then we want to get our goal. We want to make this more affordable, and we do want to get owner-occupied. We want to build wealth, and the best way to do that. So I think it's just important to sort of look at some of these things and kind of look at some of the collateral damages that may be caused by the process itself. And so when we have some time between the next meetings, sort of look at some of these things, because I think we're just sort of understanding like the deed restrictions that I learned about on Monday, which it's been talked about, but I had not really considered that more. If you don't have a mortgage market, you don't have a market. And what then you're doing is sort of making the process much more difficult for the developer and making it just harder to get our achievable goals, which goes to the point of just making sure when we've talked about what that payment in lieu should be, making sure, let's talk to developers what kind of makes sense on that, because you're also not putting into that administrative cost that takes every year that we've heard about to just make sure that there's compliance, and compliance costs money. That's why we tax some things that are easier than other things. Like sales tax is easy to collect. There's other things with deductions that are not. And I thank you for your time tonight.
Perfect. Other public comment? Anyone online? Anybody else in chambers? Fantastic. Coming back to council, I'll hear any motions or comment.
I'll again move to postpone ordinance 2026-01 to our next regularly scheduled meeting on February 4th.
There's a motion and a second. Any discussion? Seeing none, will the clerk please? Oh, sorry, no, I'm so sorry. I mean, I said seeing none, but I wasn't looking, to be honest with you. Okay. Councilman Moralo.
Bang my gavel. Well, just to say, I mean, I appreciate the fact that streamlining is works, and I'm interested in that proposal. However, in the past, we've had certain objectives of streamlining. For instance, at the Blooming Food site, where we gave up a PUD for negotiation of the previous administration, which rendered now the current at Latimer Square Apartments, which has been a massive disappointment for a lot of people. Yes, we got a lot of apartments, student apartments, but what we were hoping for is a mixed-use development with other housing types and so forth, which didn't manifest because the promise was streamlining would be a process which would, give us a good outcome. So anyway, just to say that I look at that proposal with caution, put it that way.
Mm-hmm. Any other comments? I think ideally specifically about the motion. All right, seeing none, will the clerk, or can we do this by voice vote? Sad. Please call the roll.
Okay, yes. Councilmember Zulik? Yes. Asari?
Yes.
Daly?
Yes.
Rallo?
Yes.
Ruff?
Yes.
Flaherty? Yes. Stossberg? Yes. Piedmont Smith?
That motion passes 8-0. That will be postponed to our next meeting, which is February 4th. February 4th. Thank you all so very much. Unless I'm ill-informed, that concludes our period of legislation for second reading and resolutions. That means that we're moving on to our additional period of public comment. If you did not comment the first time and you have something you'd like to say, this is your opportunity to do so, to comment on matters not on the agenda. Is there anybody in the chamber that would like to comment on matters not on the agenda? Anyone online? Please, take it away, person online.
Hello?
We can hear you.
Wonderful, thank you. Hello, Council. This is Steve Volan. Thank you for hearing me tonight. I'm sorry I can't be there in person, but I just wanted to say that too many of our local giants like Charlotte Zitlow and Dan Combs are falling. I wanted to note the passing this week of yet another Bloomington institution, Lee Williams. He was a promoter of live music at the now defunct clubs Second Story and Jake's in the 80s and 90s. According to the former Herald Times reporter and Lee's close friend, Andy Graham, Lee was responsible for bringing a wide variety of seminal musicians to this humble burg, often before they became stars. Acts from K.D. Lang to Coco Taylor, from Robert Hitchcock to The Replacements, from John Lee Hooker to John Prine. The first two acts he ever booked were Richard and Linda Thompson, followed by a novice band called REM. As a DJ at the then new community radio station WFHB, I remember in 1994 being assigned to represent the station to talk with him, Shahyar Daneshkar, and James Combs about the idea they were brainstorming, a festival for musicians from all over the world. I soon got sucked into helping, along with 20 or so other people, bring the festival to life. 8 artists at 3 venues on the 100 block of West 4th Street on one night that October. The Lotus World Music and Arts Festival was such a big hit that it became an annual event, and Lee its executive director. Over the next 20 plus years, much of that time sharing office space with Lotus, I got to watch Lee grow the festival into dozens of artists annually over 4 days all over downtown Bloomington. The testament to his stewardship of Lotus is the tremendous impact it's had on the life of Bloomington to this day, both cultural and economic. By 2013, a proclamation naming it Lee Williams Day in Bloomington said that he was doing economic development, bringing visitors from far-flung places who then became ambassadors for Bloomington. None of it would have happened without his intellect, his music business acumen, his impeccable taste in music, his heart of gold, and his love for this community. I was proud to call him my friend, but I was one of hundreds. My deepest condolences to his wife, Carol, and his family. The city this week is much poorer for his loss. Around the same time as the beginning of Lotus, Lee also founded one of the first radio shows on WFHB, called The Old Changing Way, specializing in the Celtic and Anglophile music he loved during his youth growing up in England. Other DJs continue it to this day. If you'd like to actively remember Lee Williams, you have but to tune in during the same time slot it's had all this time, every Tuesday night from 9 to 11 p.m. Thank you.
Thank you for those kind and moving words. Are there anyone else who would like to issue public comment? No one online? Anyone in chamber? Hey, well, that does that then. Moving on to issues of council schedule. Colleagues, are there anything that you would like your colleagues to be aware of? Anything? Honorable Clerk, anything council schedule-wise?
All of council committee meetings that are coming up, thank you so much for getting those on the calendar and communicating with Deputy Clerk Crossley promptly. It has helped.
Yes. Attorneys, any things for the agenda? Nope. No. All right. Well, if there's no objection, we are adjourned. All right.